The Space Academy was always loud during the first week. New students arrived from every corner of the galaxy. Some came in shining uniforms, some carried strange boxes, and others just looked lost. Humans were still rare in the academy, but they had been slowly joining the last few years. Most aliens found them small, fragile, and very strange. But today, one human student was about to meet someone even stranger. His name was Daniel. He was young, from Earth, and had dreamed about this academy since childhood. To him it was more than a school, it was a bridge to the stars. When he walked through the shining corridors, he could see alien banners, strange glowing doors, and students speaking in dozens of different languages. It felt exciting, but also lonely. He had no family here, no friends, and he did not know what to expect. When he reached his new dorm room, the door opened with a soft hiss. The room looked simple: 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 tall windows showing the endless stars outside. For a moment, Daniel felt relieved. It looked normal, quiet, safe. But then he saw the shadow. Someone was already inside. A tall figure stood with his back to Daniel, unpacking something from a dark metal case. The figure turned. Daniel froze. It was his roommate, but definitely not human. The alien was tall, with gray-blue skin, glowing lines running across his arms, and sharp golden eyes. His clothes looked like armor, though lighter, almost ceremonial. Daniel had never seen his species before. The alien studied him carefully, like a soldier checking an enemy. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and steady. "You are the human," he said, as if testing the word. Daniel nodded nervously. "Yes, I guess I am." The alien tilted his head, then gave a short nod. "My name is Kale, of the Varen." Daniel had heard the name Varen once, maybe in a history lesson, a warrior race, proud and powerful, known for battles across many star systems, but nobody mentioned they would be roommates. Daniel tried to smile. "Well, nice to meet you, Kale." Kale did not smile back. Instead, he slowly placed his armor pieces on the bed, each one glowing faintly like it carried a memory. The silence stretched longer and longer. Daniel cleared his throat. "So, I guess we share this room now." Kale finally looked at him again, his golden eyes shining in the dim light. "Yes," he said simply. "But you must follow rules." Daniel blinked. "Rules?" Kale nodded. "No noise after lights out, no touching my weapons, no asking about my scars." Daniel raised his eyebrows. "Scars?" Kale pulled back part of his armor, revealing strange marks carved deep into his skin, glowing faint blue. "They are history," he said, voice hard, "not conversation." Daniel quickly looked away. He did not want trouble, but something about Kale felt heavy, like the air grew thicker when he spoke. The first night was strange. Daniel tried to study his datapad quietly, while Kale sat completely still on his bed, almost like a statue. The alien did not sleep, at least not in the human way. Instead, he sat with his eyes half closed, breathing slow, as if listening to something far away. Daniel wondered if he made a mistake coming here, but at the same time, a small spark of curiosity grew in his chest. Who was this Kale really, and why did the Academy pair them together? When Daniel finally turned off his lamp and lay down, he whispered to himself, "It's just a roommate, nothing more." But he was wrong, because Kale was not just a strange roommate. He carried secrets from a world Daniel could not imagine, and before long, those secrets would pull Daniel into something far bigger than just school. That night, Daniel drifted into uneasy sleep, but Kale stayed awake, watching the stars through the window, his golden eyes reflecting the endless dark. He whispered something in his own language, a promise or maybe a warning. The stars did not answer, and in that silence the room felt colder. The human and the alien shared the same space, but neither knew how complicated their lives were about to become. Days passed slowly inside the academy. Daniel was getting used to his new life, but not. To his roommate, Kale remained quiet, cold, and distant. He followed his rules strictly, never laughed, never relaxed, and never showed weakness. Daniel tried to talk sometimes, but most conversations ended with Cale's short answers. Still, Daniel noticed something strange. Every time Cale studied him, it was never casual. It was as if the alien was searching for something hidden, some secret only he could see. One evening, after a long day of training, Daniel returned to the room exhausted. The academy pushed humans hard, always testing if they could keep up with alien students. Daniel was sweaty. His muscles ached, and his only wish was a moment of privacy. Cale was not in the room, so Daniel finally relaxed. He dropped his uniform jacket, tossed his boots aside, and played some old Earth music from his datapad. The soft rhythm filled the room, gentle and human. Daniel began humming, then softly, singing, his voice carrying a tune from Earth that nobody else here knew. It was not perfect, but it was honest. For Daniel, it was comfort, a piece of home floating among the stars. He closed his eyes, letting the music take him away. He forgot about Kyle, forgot about the academy, forgot about the rules. He started to sing louder. Even acting silly with his voice, his arms moved in rhythm, his body relaxed. For the first time since arriving, Daniel felt free. But he did not hear the door slide open. He did not see the shadow entering the room. Cale stood in the doorway, frozen. The golden light in his eyes brightened as he watched. Daniel continued singing, moving, laughing softly to himself. To Cale, it looked unreal, almost dangerous. On his world, sound and rhythm were sacred. Songs were not allowed to be playful, only used for rituals, for war, for death. Yet here was his human roommate, throwing sound into the air like sparks from fire. Cale's hand tightened into a fist, but his body refused to move. Daniel finally turned mid-song, and his heart nearly jumped out of his chest. Cale was standing there, staring at him with an expression Daniel could not read. Fear, anger, shock. Daniel quickly stopped the music. Cale, I didn't know you were back. The silence was heavy. Cale stepped closer, slowly, his eyes never leaving Daniel's face. What was that? Cale asked, his voice sharp, almost trembling. Daniel blinked. What was what, you mean? Singing? It's just a human thing. Cale's eyes narrowed. A human thing, he repeated. Yes, Daniel said nervously. We sing, we make music. It's normal back home. Cale's breath grew heavier. You must not do that again, not where others can hear, he said firmly. Daniel frowned. Why? It's just music, just a song. Cale's golden eyes glowed brighter. To you maybe, but not to my people, not to most of this academy. Daniel crossed his arms. You're saying singing is dangerous? Cale leaned closer, his voice a whisper now. More dangerous than you can imagine. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Cale's tone carried no humor, no exaggeration, only truth. He wanted to ask more, but Cale turned away, pacing the room like a caged animal. You don't understand, human, Cale muttered. You opened a door you cannot close. Daniel tried to laugh nervously. It was just an accident. I wasn't trying to start trouble. Cale stopped suddenly, his hand pressing against the wall, his sharp shoulders tense. You think it was an accident, he said slowly. But accidents have consequences. The room grew silent again, except for the faint echo of Earth music still lingering in the air. Daniel felt confused, frustrated, and strangely curious. Why would a simple song scare someone like Cale, a warrior from a powerful race? What secret was hidden in music, in voice, in rhythm? Before Daniel could ask, Cale finally turned to him, his expression unreadable. From now on, when you sing, sing only where no one can hear, he said firmly. Do you understand? Daniel swallowed. Yeah, I guess. But deep inside, he knew something had changed. The look in Cale's eyes was not just fear, it was recognition. As if Daniel had touched something sacred, something forbidden, and whatever it was, it had already started to pull them, both into danger. That night, Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Cale sat silently by the window, watching the stars again. But this time, Daniel noticed his hands were trembling, and in the reflection of the glass, Cale's lips moved soundlessly, repeating a word Daniel could not understand. A word that sounded more like a warning than a prayer. The accident was simple, but the consequences were only beginning. The next morning, Daniel pretended everything was normal. He greeted Cale politely, ate his breakfast quickly, and tried not to think about last night. But the image of Cale's trembling hands would not leave his mind. It bothered him. Cale looked strong, unbreakable, the kind of warrior who feared nothing. So why would a human song shake him so deeply? Classes at the academy passed in a blur. Daniel sat among aliens of every shape and size, listening to lectures about history, strategy, and science. But his mind was elsewhere. He kept replaying Cale's words in his head. "You opened a door you cannot close." It sounded less like a warning and more like a prophecy. When the lessons ended, Daniel rushed back to his room. He needed answers. Cale was already there, sitting cross-legged on the floor with his eyes closed. Strange blue symbols glowed faintly across his skin as if his body itself was remembering something. Daniel hesitated at the door, then stepped inside. "Cale," he said carefully, "we need to talk." Cale's eyes opened slowly, golden, light spilling out as if waking from a dream. "What do you want, human?" he asked quietly. Daniel crossed his arms. "About last night. You said music was dangerous. Why?" For a moment, Cale did not answer. He looked at Daniel as though deciding whether he was worth the truth. Finally, Cale stood and walked to the window, staring at the endless stars. "Among the Varen," he began, his voice heavy. "Song is not entertainment, it is power." Daniel frowned. "Power?" Cale nodded. "Long ago, our people used resonance to command matter itself, to control minds, to shape armies." Daniel's eyes widened. "With music?" Cale turned to face him. Not music, resonance. Every voice carried energy, and those who knew the patterns could break or build worlds. Daniel tried to laugh, but the sound died in his throat. Cale was not joking. His golden eyes glowed brighter as he continued. "Our leaders feared it, so they banned it, destroyed it, erased it from memory. To sing without permission is a crime punishable by exile or death," Daniel whispered. "And me singing last night." Cale interrupted. "It was not just singing, human. Your voice carried a pattern, one I have not heard since childhood. A pattern thought lost forever." Daniel's heart raced. "You're saying I accidentally used some kind of forbidden alien magic?" Cale's jaw tightened. "Yes, though you may not understand it, your kind. Humans, you still hold what my people lost. You carry resonance without even trying." Daniel stared at him in disbelief. He wanted to argue, to call it nonsense, but deep inside he remembered how Cale froze in the doorway, how his body reacted as if struck by lightning. It wasn't nonsense, not to him. Cale stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If the others discover this, they will not see you as a student. They will see you as a weapon or a threat." Daniel swallowed hard. "So what do I do?" "Hide it," Cale said firmly. "Never sing where others can hear. Never let them know what you are." Daniel nodded slowly, but his mind was a storm. How could something so ordinary back on Earth be something forbidden here? And if humans carried this ability without knowing, what else was hidden in them? The room grew silent again, but it was not peaceful. Daniel felt the weight of Cale's words pressing on his chest. He wanted to believe he could just ignore it, but he knew better. Secrets had a way of escaping, and in a place filled with dozens of alien species, secrets never stayed safe for long. That night, Daniel tried to sleep, but the memory of Cale's warning kept him awake. Every creak of the dorm, every whisper of the ventilation system, sounded louder, as if the universe itself was listening. At last, he sat up and stared at Cale, who once again sat motionless by the window. "Cale," Daniel whispered. "Why me? Why humans?" Cale's golden eyes opened slowly, reflecting starlight. Because your species never forgot, he said softly. Even when you did not know what you held. It lived in your songs, your laughter, your imagination. You are dangerous because you do not realize your own power. Daniel felt his throat tighten. For the first time, he did not feel like a small human among giants. He felt like something else, something unknown, something important. But before he could ask another question, Kale lifted a hand, silencing him. Someone was outside their door. The faint sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Too slow, too careful. Daniel's heart pounded. Kale whispered one word, his voice, low and sharp. Hide. The human obeyed instantly, sliding into the shadows near his bed. Kale stood tall, his golden eyes glowing brighter, his armor plates humming faintly. The footsteps stopped right outside. A pause, then silence. Daniel held his breath. And then a small slip of paper was pushed under the door. Kale bent down, picked it up, and read silently. His face grew dark. He crumpled the paper in his hand and whispered, "It has already begun." The paper in Kale's hand was small, but Daniel could feel the weight of it even before Kale spoke. The Varan warrior stood in silence, the golden glow in his eyes flickering like fire. Finally, Kyle opened his hand, and the paper floated onto the desk. Daniel picked it up carefully, his heart racing. The words were written in a language he didn't know, but Kale translated them in a flat voice. "They know," Kale said, "and they are watching you." Daniel felt a shiver crawl down his spine. "Watching me? Who? I didn't do anything wrong." Kyle shook his head slowly. "You sang human, and that is enough." Daniel's hands tightened around the paper, "But I didn't even know." Kyle's gaze turned hard. "Ignorance does not protect you. Here." From that night on, Daniel noticed the changes. When he walked down the academy halls, alien students turned to stare at him. Some whispered behind their hands. Others moved aside as if he carried disease. A few even lowered their eyes. In strange respect, as though he were some kind of leader, Daniel tried to ignore it, but the pressure grew heavier with every step. He felt eyes on him during meals, during lessons, even when he studied alone. It was as if the whole academy had heard his voice. That night, even though he was certain only Kale had been there one afternoon, while Daniel carried his datapad through the common hall, a tall alien with silver horns stepped in front of him. The alien's voice was sharp. "You are the human who sings." Daniel froze. "I don't know what you're talking about." The alien leaned closer, his breath cold. "Your voice does not belong here. It is dangerous." Before Daniel could respond, Kyle appeared at his side. His presence was like a storm contained in flesh. "Move," Kale said, his tone calm but lethal. The horned alien stiffened, then stepped back quickly, avoiding Kale's golden stare. Daniel exhaled in relief, but Kale did not look relieved at all. That night, Daniel confronted him. "You said to keep it secret, but somehow everybody already knows." Kale nodded grimly. "Rumors travel faster than light in places like this, and once they begin, they cannot be stopped." Daniel dropped onto his bed, covering his face with his hands. "Great. So now half the academy thinks I'm a freak." Kale's voice was cold. "Not a freak, a threat. The next days only confirmed it." Strange messages began appearing on Daniel's locker, symbols he couldn't read, warnings painted in glowing ink. One morning, he found a mark carved into his desk, a circle with 3 slashes through it. Kale's expression darkened when he saw it. "That mark means silence. They want you gone before you speak again." Daniel's chest tightened with fear, but another part of him felt angry. He had done nothing but sing, a thing humans had done for thousands of years. Why should that make him dangerous? Still, he couldn't shake the feeling of invisible chains wrapping around him. Every laugh, every hum, every whisper of a song could betray him now. One evening, as Daniel tried to study, Kale suddenly stood and walked to the window. "They will test you soon," Kyle said without turning. Daniel frowned. "Test me? What do you mean?" Kale's voice was low. "Someone in authority has heard the rumors, and they will not ignore them. They will want proof." Daniel's throat went dry. And if I fail? Kyle turned, his eyes glowing like molten metal. Then you disappear. The words hit harder than a punch. Daniel stared at his roommate, trying to read if he was exaggerating, but Kyle's face remained hard and serious. There was no exaggeration, only truth. The academy was no longer just a school. It had become a battlefield, and Daniel had been placed in the center without his consent. Later that night, Daniel sat awake in the dark. He remembered Earth, the comfort of his small room, the safety of being just another face in the crowd. Here, he was not safe, not invisible. Here, he was something different, something unwanted. He turned to Kale, who sat silently polishing his armor. "Why are you even helping me?" Daniel asked softly. Kale did not stop his work, but his answer was sharp. "Because if they destroy you, they destroy hope for my people too." Daniel frowned. "Hope?" Kale finally looked at him, his golden eyes steady. "Yes, human. You think your song was an accident, but for the Varen, it was a memory, a reminder of what we once were. Your voice woke something that has been buried for generations." Daniel didn't know what to say. He wasn't a warrior, he wasn't a leader, he was just a boy who liked to hum when he was bored. But to Kale, and maybe to others, he was becoming something more, something dangerous, something powerful. And if Kale was right, soon the academy would force him to prove it. Daniel closed his eyes, trying to push away the fear. But deep down, curiosity burned hotter than his fear. What if Kale was right? What if humans really carried something the galaxy had lost? And what if singing was only the beginning? The rumors had spread too far. By the end of the week, Daniel could feel the academy watching him like a predator watches prey. Every step echoed louder, every word seemed sharper. The whispers no longer stopped when he walked past. They followed him, clinging to his back like shadows. The human with the voice, and some said. The weapon in disguise. Others whispered. And though Daniel tried to ignore them, his chest grew heavier with each passing day. Kyle noticed it too. He moved closer to Daniel during meals, walked with him between classes, and watched the hallways like a soldier scanning a battlefield. But even Kale's presence couldn't silence the tide of suspicion. One evening, as the two returned to their dorm, they found a group waiting. 5 aliens stood in the corridor blocking the door, their eyes sharp, their postures tense. Daniel froze, but Kyle stepped forward, his hand brushing the hilt of a blade hidden beneath his armor. The tallest alien, with silver skin and eyes like black glass, spoke first. "We want proof," he said, his voice low and steady. Daniel blinked. "Proof of what?" The silver-skinned alien smiled faintly. "Proof of your gift. The voice that stirs fear and memory. Sing for us." Daniel's heart pounded. He took a step back, shaking his head. "No, it was a mistake. I don't even know what you're talking about." But the aliens closed in, their shadows stretching across the walls. Kale's golden eyes flared as he raised his voice. "Leave now," he warned, "or you will regret it." The group hesitated, but their leader only smirked. "The Varan protects him. Interesting, but you cannot protect him forever." They left without another word, but their threat lingered in the air. Daniel exhaled shakily once the corridor was empty. "This is insane, Kale. I didn't ask for any of this." Kale turned to him, his expression cold. "No one asked for destiny, human. It arrives whether we are ready or not." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay awake, replaying the words in his mind. Proof. They wanted proof. What would happen if they forced him? What if they dragged him into the open and demanded he sing? Would the whole academy turn against him, or would something worse awaken? He shivered at the thought, but curiosity gnawed at him too. What if Kale was right? What if there really was power hidden in his voice? The confrontation came sooner than expected. During a strategy lecture the next day, the door burst open. 2 guards in black armor entered, their faces hidden behind mirrored visors. The class went silent, all eyes turning as the guards pointed directly at Daniel. "Human student," one of them said, "you are summoned." Daniel's stomach dropped. Summoned. The word echoed like a death sentence. Kyle stood immediately, his golden eyes burning. "Where?" he demanded. The guards didn't answer. They only gestured for Daniel to follow. The professor said nothing. The students whispered nervously. Daniel felt every eye stabbing into him as he walked out, Kyle at his side. They were led through twisting corridors, past doors Daniel had never seen before, until they reached a massive chamber. The walls glowed with alien symbols, the air thick with tension. At the far end sat 3 figures in dark robes, their faces hidden in shadow. Daniel's legs felt weak, but Kale's hand on his shoulder kept him steady. One of the robed figures spoke, the voice deep and ancient. "We have heard the rumors. Human. They say your kind carries a forgotten power. Show us." Daniel shook his head instantly. "No, I don't want to. I don't even know what you're asking." The figure leaned forward. "Do not lie. The Varen has already confirmed it." Kale's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Daniel turned to him in shock. "You told them?" Kale's eyes glowed brighter. "I told no one. They knew before we did." Daniel's chest ached with panic. He wanted to run, to scream, to vanish, but there was no escape. The robed figures waited in silence, their eyes hidden but heavy with expectation. At last, Daniel whispered, "And if I refuse?" The central figure answered calmly, "Then you will not leave this chamber alive." The words struck like ice. Kyle moved instantly, stepping in front of Daniel, his voice like thunder. "You will not harm him." The guards at the walls shifted, ready to act, the chamber filling with sharp tension. Daniel's breath came fast, his mind spinning. He could feel the pressure of the moment, the trap closing around him. If he sang, he might reveal something he didn't understand, something that could change everything. If he refused, he might not live to see another day. Caught between fear and survival, Daniel slowly opened his mouth. The chamber held its breath. Kale's golden eyes locked on him, silently urging him to be careful. The robed figures leaned forward, eager, and as Daniel's first note escaped his lips, the walls themselves seemed to tremble. The air shifted, alive. Something ancient had awakened. The sound of Daniel's voice filled the chamber. It was soft at first, uncertain, trembling with fear. But even that small note sent a ripple across the room. The glowing symbols on the walls flickered. The air vibrated like a living drum. The guards stiffened, the robed figures leaned forward, and Kale's golden eyes widened in shock. Daniel didn't understand it. To him, it was just a note, just a sound. But to everyone else, it was something else entirely. The robed figure in the center raised a hand, silencing the room. "Enough," he said, though his voice carried awe instead of anger. He studied Daniel carefully. "The resonance lives in you, just as the rumors claimed." Daniel lowered his head, ashamed. "I don't even know what I did." The figure leaned closer. "That is why you must be tested. The galaxy cannot ignore this gift, or this danger." Kale stepped forward, his voice sharp. "He is not a tool for your games." But the other figures ignored him. 2 guards stepped forward, seizing Daniel's arms. "No." Kale barked, but the guards shoved Daniel toward a hidden door at the side of the chamber. Kale tried to follow, but another barrier of glowing light appeared, trapping him behind. "Kale!" Daniel shouted, but his voice echoed into silence. The hidden door slid open, and Daniel was pulled into a new chamber. It was darker, colder, the walls lined with strange metal panels that hummed faintly. In the center stood a massive structure like a cage of light. The guards forced him inside, and the cage sealed shut with a low hum. A voice boomed from above, mechanical and ancient. "This is the chamber of resonance. Here truth is revealed." Daniel swallowed hard, gripping the glowing bars. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. The voice answered, "Sing, and we will see what you are." His throat went dry. He didn't want to. Every part of him screamed against it, but the cage buzzed with strange energy, pressing on his chest, forcing the sound out of him. So he sang. At first, a quiet hum, then slowly louder. The notes wavered, then steadied, filling the chamber with a sound that felt too large for his small body. The panels on the walls began to glow, patterns forming, lines of light stretching across the floor. The entire chamber vibrated like a heartbeat. Daniel gasped for breath, but the sound did not stop. It poured out of him like water from a broken dam. And as it did, visions flashed in his mind. Stars being born, planets shattering, armies marching to the rhythm of forgotten songs. He saw the Varan in ancient times standing in circles, singing together to move mountains and split oceans. And he saw them silenced, their songs erased, their voices chained by fear. The vision shook him, but he could not stop. Outside the cage, the robed figures whispered to each other. One of them trembled. "It is real. The resonance has returned." Another hissed, "We cannot allow this. Power to spread." The central figure only watched, silent and calculating. At last, the energy inside the cage exploded outward. The guards stumbled back, shielding their faces from the light. Daniel fell to his knees, gasping, his voice broken. But alive, the chamber walls dimmed. The patterns faded and silence returned. But everyone who witnessed it knew the truth. The human was no ordinary student. He was something more. The robed figure spoke again, his tone heavy. "You carry the weapon of creation and destruction. Human, a gift the Varan buried long ago and a curse the galaxy has not seen in centuries." Daniel's body shook. "I don't want it. I never asked for this." The figure's reply was cold. "It does not matter what you want. The power is awake now, and it will not sleep again." Suddenly, the barrier around Kyle dissolved. The Varan warrior rushed to Daniel's side, helping him stand. Kyle glared at the robed figures, his voice a growl. "You dare use him like a weapon. He is not yours to control." But the figures only smiled faintly. "The test is complete. He has proven what he is." One of them leaned forward, eyes gleaming in the shadows. "Now the galaxy must decide what to do with him." Kyle pulled Daniel close, whispering, "Listen to me, human. From this moment, you are not safe. They will want to use you or destroy you or chain you. But you cannot let them." Daniel's chest ached with fear and confusion. He wanted to collapse, to pretend none of this was real. But Kyle's grip on his arm was firm, steady, alive with urgency. "You must choose, Daniel," Kyle whispered, "whether to run or to fight." Daniel looked at the glowing cage, at the robed figures, at the guards who still trembled from his voice. And in that moment he realized something. He had never been ordinary. Not here, not anymore. The test had changed everything, and there was no going back. The chamber doors opened with a hiss. Kyle guided Daniel out, his strong hand gripping the human's shoulder as if to keep him from falling. The guards did not stop them, but their dark eyes followed every step. The robed figures remained in shadow, whispering quietly as the two left. Daniel could feel their voices clinging to him like invisible chains. The corridors were silent, too silent. Normally the academy buzzed with noise, laughter, arguments, footsteps echoing in every direction. But now, every hallway they passed seemed empty, every corner seemed to watch. Daniel whispered, "Kyle, what happens now?" Kyle's jaw tightened. Now nothing is simple. Back in their dorm room, Daniel collapsed onto his bed, burying his face in his hands. His voice still hurt, his throat raw from the test, but the real pain was in his chest, the weight of what he had seen. He remembered the visions, the Varan singing together, shaping worlds, breaking them. He remembered their silence, their chains, their fear. And now he understood why Kyle had looked at him with such intensity that first night. To Kyle, he was not just a roommate. He was a reminder of everything the Varan had lost. Kyle sat across from him, polishing a blade slowly, his golden eyes softer than usual. "You should not blame yourself," Kyle said. "You did not choose this." Daniel looked up, his voice low. "But it doesn't matter, does it? They will still see me as a weapon." Kyle nodded once. "Yes, some will fear you, some will want to use you, and some will want you destroyed." Daniel groaned. "That's comforting." Kyle tilted his head, Almost like a smile touched his lips, but it faded quickly. For the first time since arriving, Daniel spoke the question burning in his mind. Why do you care, Kale? You could let them take me and your people would be safer. Kale's hands stilled, his golden eyes fixed on Daniel. Because I am tired of silence, he said, his voice steady. My people buried our voices long ago and with them our freedom, but when you sang, I remembered what it felt like to be alive. I will not let them kill that memory again. Daniel blinked, shocked. Kale, the cold warrior who lived by rules, who never smiled, who seemed carved from stone, was confessing something fragile. Daniel's chest tightened, not with fear but with something new. Trust. A complicated, dangerous trust, but trust nonetheless. Days passed, but nothing returned to normal. More eyes followed Daniel. Whispers grew louder, and warnings appeared more often. Once someone left a glowing mark on their door, a mark Kale scraped off with a blade while muttering curses in his language. Another time, Daniel found his datapad hacked, strange messages flashing on the screen. Voice of danger, break the silence, sing again. The academy had become a cage. Every step carried the weight of fear. Yet through it all, Kyle stayed close. He trained harder, watched sharper, slept less. And in those rare quiet hours, Daniel noticed small changes. Kyle no longer spoke only in commands. Sometimes he shared fragments of Varan stories, tales of battle, but also of songs sung long ago before they were forbidden. Daniel listened, realizing that beneath Kale's armor was not just a warrior, but someone who longed for something lost. One evening, as they sat by the window, stars burning outside, Daniel finally said it. You're more than a soldier, Kale. Kale raised an eyebrow. Am I? Yes, Daniel said softly. You're my friend. The word hung in the air like fragile glass. Kale was silent for a long time, his golden eyes reflecting starlight. At last, he said, Then perhaps I am human after all. They both laughed quietly, the sound awkward but real. It didn't erase the danger, it didn't fix the future, but for a moment the tension broke, and Daniel realized something important. Even if the galaxy saw him as a weapon, even if enemies waited in every shadow, he wasn't alone anymore. He had Kale, a strange, complicated, impossible friend, but their moment of peace didn't last. A soft knock echoed at the door. Kale stiffened. Instantly, his hand reaching for his blade, Daniel froze, his breath caught. The knock came again, followed by a voice calm and sharp. Human Varan, you are summoned once more. Daniel's chest tightened. Kale stood tall, his golden eyes burning. He turned to Daniel and whispered, Whatever happens, we face it together. Daniel nodded, fear and courage mixing inside him, because their story was not ending here. It was only beginning.